Welcome to Gents Garage. Today we'll be replacing the seals needles on a Carburettor on a ZXR 400. The tools you need are shown here, as well as the list provided on the left hand side of the screen. You will need a various range of sockets, pliers, a trim tool, a variety of Allen keys, and a ratchet of your choosing for the corresponding socket, as well as an extension bar just to make life things a little bit easier. You also need a Phillips screwdriver. I am using mine for an attachment for the 3/8 drive, just to make things a little bit quicker. Some old rags are very useful for collecting any escaping fluid, as well as some trays for any loose bolts. To gain access to the carburetor, you will need to remove the fuel tank itself. I have already done this, as I'm currently de-rusting my fuel tank. The left hand side fairing can also be removed just to make things a little bit easier. There is 2 bolts either side of the fuel tank, as well as 2 for the seat base, as well as the rear part of the seat base. Will be to remove the air filter housing. There is a ring of bolts all the way around, which are 10mm, and as well as this breather pipe as well. Just be cautious when fitting them again, just to hand tighten them, as they can crack the plastics. Those, I would remove the choke cable as well as the throttle cables. To do this, the choke is a slider on this spring. Once you have slid it all the way down, you will be able to then get some slack on this, and there is a tiny little gap just there, which then you will be able to feed the choke cable through and then push down to release it. Next is the 2 throttle cables. One is a return cable. They're both fixed to a bracket. You can of course remove the cables themselves off the bracket, however I tend to remove the bracket altogether just so they're in the right position when I do return them. You can of course name them top and bottom, just to give you a rough idea if you are going to go down that route of removing the cable rather than the bracket. But the bracket is attached with a 4mm Allen key on the back, just here where my finger is, and then it should give you enough slack to be able to take it off the wheel itself. As you can see just there, the bracket is now detached, however it is on a pin itself. Once you do tend to remove it, as you can see, it brings a lot of slack into those cables. Once they're both removed, you can then just remove this spring by pulling it downwards and then leaving it on the bracket itself. As you can see just down here, there is another cable which is attached to the choke, and to remove that you can simply just untwist it bit by bit until it comes out of its fixing. There we are. Just be careful not to lose the spring or the washer at the end of this cable. This sets your idle, so you will have to readjust it once you put it back together. Next with this would be this fuel cable. However, mine is attached with a Jubilee rather than a spring clip like this. If you have got a spring clip, a pair of pliers, when you just squish it down and you'll be able to jiggle it down the pipe itself. However, I can see mine's a Jubilee, so I do need to take off this surround to be able to gain access. As you can see there, the Jubilee is still up against this plate, so I will need to remove this support just to be able to gain access to that Jubilee to be able to remove those fuel pipes. Next, to remove the carburetor itself, you will need to unscrew all these screws, which are just down here by the choke cable. Just be careful to note their position. They are facing flush against this, so straight going that way, 2 of them, as you can see there and there, and then 2 of them going this way, which if I can just squeeze in there to show you, make sure they go back in the exact same position, as they can block this slider. You have removed everything including the choke cable off the side. Just slacken those Phillips screws rather than removing themselves, just so they don't slide off the end, otherwise it will be a bit of a pain to get them back into place. You should then be able to just twist and turn it very gently. Be careful not to nudge anything, and they should just pop out the bottom. As you can see, once the carburetor is loose, there is coolant pipes running from left to right. I am going to pipe clamp these down and just take off the actual filter itself, and then just slide off the other pipe just located down this side where my finger is. So when leaving the air intake exposed like this, I do tend to just put some blue roll down there, just to make sure nothing falls down there, because if something falls down there, it is a very big challenge to try and get it out, and if it turns over, chances are you will need to strip the engine itself. As you can see, I have now got the carburetor out. Most of the things we will be replacing will be on this bottom side, but always work with some rares. As you can see, I've got coolant escaping just there, and chances are there will be some fuel in there, so it's just a case of catching the fuel itself. As you can see there, they are fixed in. However, this does gives it just a bit of wiggle room. Just be very cautious of these plastics, because they are quite brittle after having fuel in them, and they can snap quite easily. So what we're going to do first is remove all 4 screws off of one, just to assess the damage. Power tools aren't really advised for this sort of process, as I can see one stripped here and one stripped a bit further down there. When undoing them for the first time, just break them off rather than using the ratchet itself, and that will just loosen it. That way you know you won't strip the bolt itself, and then you can continue as normal. As you can see in this set, I did buy one for all 4. Came in nice little bags just to keep them separate. You can see it's got 2 rubber O-rings, another one just for the actual float itself, which I do recommend replacing every time, and you do have a couple of springs, some needles for the carburetors themselves, a washer, and a filter itself. So I do recommend you replace absolutely everything in the bag, as you're currently here and it's stripped, so you might as well do it. To remove this seal, just simply get a pick inside there. You can damage this seal as we are replacing it. If you don't have one of these picks, then a flathead screwdriver, a precision one, will do just fine. And then as you're going along, it's best advised just to replace the parts as you take them off. Next, there are needles inside these ports. As you can see, it's got a flathead screwdriver. It's very similar to inside there. I don't know if I could just get enough light on it. No, not really. And what you do is just simply pop it in. As soon as you find the tension, give it a light turn just to make sure it is going to come out. And slowly but surely unscrew it. Doesn't have a lot of thread. Once it is out, you should be able to just let it slide out. Famous last words, as you can see. There we are. And this is quite a common problem on carburetors. They tend to get blocked up and gunged up, and as you can see, and it does have a hole at the end just there. But there's also small holes running around. So it does need to be replaced, or even if you can get this out and just give it a clean through with some carb cleaner and some air pressure, you do tend to do quite well. I tend to only do one at a time, just due to the fact you can forget which hole goes into which. And as you can see in my little kit, got the exact replica. And then just measure them up once they do come out. Just make sure the thread's the same, the diameter's the same. Just to make sure it is about right. With this one, I haven't got a replacement for it. I've got the top end for it, however, so we'll replace that when putting it back together. I just wanted to take it out, put some carb clean down it, get some air pressure. As you can see, it's got very similar holes. And as my bike is now running, however, it is a bit lumpy. I just wanted to refresh the carburetors to make sure they're working correctly. Next will be to replace the float springs. There is a Phillips screw just there, and then just be careful as it will just pop straight out. I have just removed the pilot jet from in here below the pipes. They do come, this is the old one, so it does come with a new spring in the kit itself. Just be cautious because you will need to readjust the adjustments once it is all back together, because you will have a rough idle. Now, I was able to remove the seat itself. It's quite important. As you can see on the bottom, there is that little sheath or filter. If I just show you inside the carb itself, if I can even get any light down there, but it is full of debris, as you can see there, so it does require replacing. There is of course a new seal to be put on as well, but I do highly recommend to change that because that can cause issues further down the line. I've got a bit of carb clean just to get it down there, try and get most of the dirt out, and then just tip it upside down so it has a chance to exit. With the seals, best way to do it is actually push both fingers round while trying to keep the seal in place. And it should just pop on like that. And with the filter, all the sheath, all the metal netting at the end, it is a case of just pushing it on. It should sit nice and flush. And then simply just push down to make sure it sits all the way at the bottom. And that should be it. Now it's a case of just gently being able to put it all back together, replacing all the screws as you go along, because there is one to hold this seat at the bottom, and then one more sits at the top to be able to keep the float in place. I'm just going to tighten these by hand just to make sure they're in all the way, plus to avoid damaging the screws themselves. Now with this float, you do have this at the bottom, so it does need to be inserted into there, and then the actual float itself sort of sits between the two of them. And you can simply pop the screw back in to make sure that float doesn't go anywhere. Once again, hand tighten only because it is quite a gentle metal, and then just make sure the float is free to move up and down. Now simply just put the cover back on, making sure the seal is flush all the way around, and then once again just hand tighten it as it doesn't need a lot of force to get in there. Now this one is completed, it can be followed over in the exact same way for the rest of the four. As you can see, it is now back together. I haven't actually replaced the fuel pipes, however I put the clips back on just to show how it's meant to be finished. To refit all the components, just reverse the procedure, fitting it with care, especially around the plastic components because they can damage quite easily, and just follow any torque figures on screen.